Montreal Canadiens hirings and firings, a Geoff Molson press conference, and other game day news. Hey everybody, I'm Rick. Welcome to Talking Habs, where you get your daily fix of Bleu Blanc Rouge. All right, so this is the day after the aftermath. It's the aftermath of all the firings. There was a resignation, and there was one new hiring. I think it's quite significant for this team going forward. Montreal Canadiens are kind of in a new direction. One, I don't know if we've ever had a president, or this is an executive vice president of hockey operations or not. I can't really remember that if we have, but we're going in a new direction with Jeff Gorton. And I'll give you everything I've got. I've got the timeline on how the firings and the resignation happened, and the press conference, opinions that I found out there. I'll give you my opinion, and let's get started. So when I was doing the game on Saturday, the game Montreal versus Pittsburgh, it was announced during the game that assistant GM Scott Mellenby had resigned. And then like speculation kind of went rampant in our chat and everywhere. And then shortly thereafter, it was also announced that they were in talks with former New York Rangers GM Jeff Gorton, and that was for position other than GM. So with everybody expecting Marc Bergevin to be let go and Trevor Timmins, I guess it was a surprise. Now, Jeff Gorton, being an American, not speaking French, you know the rule here, the GM has to be bilingual as a minimum, and he didn't fit the bill, so he wasn't going to be the GM. So we weren't sure what was going to happen. They were expecting or saying that more than likely there will be announcements the following day, which was Sunday, which was yesterday. I'm filming this on Monday. So all day long, I was checking to see if there was an announcement, and it came late in the afternoon, or actually around mid-afternoon. The Habs announced the hiring of Jeff Gorton as the executive vice president of hockey operations, and then they announced the firing of Marc Bergevin and the director of scouting Trevor Timmins and the director of communications Paul Wilson. So basically cleaning house as far as the executives go, and yeah, so that's where we are. It was then promised that Geoff Molson would have a press conference today, which is Monday, which he did. So I've got stuff from that. I've got my opinion, and I've got stuff that I've found that I want to relate to you guys. And let's get right into it. So this is a statement from Geoff Molson about the firing. On behalf of myself and the organization, I wish to thank Marc Bergevin, Trevor Timmins, and Paul Wilson for their passion and engagement towards our club over the last years. Their relentless work allowed our fans to experience many memorable moments, including last summer's playoff run that culminated with the Stanley Cup final. We wish them all the success they deserve in the pursuit of their careers. I think, however, that the time has come for a leadership change within our hockey operations department that will bring a new vision and should allow our fans and partners to continue cheering for a championship team. We'll talk about the rest of that there in a second. Yeah, so this is a new direction for Montreal, and he goes on. There's more. Anyway, let's get into it. So this is what Molson said in his press conference about that he waited until Marc Bergevin was over his COVID-19 before dismissing him, adding that Bergevin understood the owner's reasoning for being fired when they spoke on Sunday. Although there was a story out that Marc Bergevin did not find out about this except through the through social media. He was apparently upset about that, so not sure which it is. Apparently, contacts between Geoff Molson and Jeff Gorton started 10 days ago, so this has been for the last, I imagine he's been thinking about it for a little while, but they actually got in contact with Jeff Gorton and started the negotiations 10 days ago. You know, when you think about that, Marc Bergevin talked to the press a couple of times in that time frame. Yeah, it's weird, eh? He didn't know that this was going on behind the scenes, but yeah, so there's the timeline there. So this is an interesting thing in that it's called, they're kind of flipping the traditional roles of what a hockey operations guy is and what the GM does and how they work. And this is from an article by Frank Saravelli, and I found it very interesting, and I thought I'd bring it to you guys. So he says, what if the tradition-obsessed Canadians are taking the non-traditional route and breaking free of the established norms, both in the way their club has previously operated and how NHL front offices have typically been structured? What if this is a creative workaround to pacify a fan base and market that demands a francophone GM? Because up until this point, the NHL's various presidents of hockey operations have been more figureheads than shot callers, the conduit between ownership and the front office, who can also be the public face of the franchise to take bullets for the manager that is doing all the day-to-day heavy lifting. Gorton could undoubtedly fill that role. He is certainly presidential. But what if the Canadiens are flipping that model upside down? Gorton, 53, could be the man at the controls with all the traditional say and power of an NHL GM, while the subsequent francophone, who was actually hired with that title, will gain valuable experience under him in a collaborative role where he is also the franchise's voice and face, en français, to hockey's most rabid market. So this we were talking about in the live stream last night. He'll hire the French GM that they're going to hire, or the bilingual guy. It won't matter who it is in a way, as long as somebody who, can learn on the job and get better at it. But basically, Gorton is the guy, and he's going to make the decisions, and he's going to train the new GM, and they're going to work together. And, and basically the GM's the face of the franchise. Gorton's going to be running the show completely, not in the typical way of a hockey operations guy. It would be an unprecedented front office structure, but it would make sense on so many levels. Gorton is known as a collaborator, a relationship builder among his staff. He spent his entire NHL career within the original six, now having checked off half of it on his resume by adding the Canadiens next to the Bruins and Rangers. His mentors are Harry Sinden and Glenn Sather, two Hall of Fame builders. And Gorton knows how to build as both a shrewd talent evaluator in the draft and in someone who knows how to find a finishing touch to a rebuild, even if it means nabbing him a couple of years ahead of time. So even grabbing a guy early, he's open to doing that, and he's been credited with rebuilding back in the day the Boston Bruins, signing some very key players, and then doing it recently with the Rangers. The Rangers aren't fully rebuilt, or the success of this rebuild hasn't taken place completely yet, but that's a pretty damn good team. He brought a lot of good players there, and he can revamp this hockey team. He's considered apparently one of, if not the finest, talent evaluators in the league right now. Very important. Gorton could bring along Matthew Darche, who's very that's one of the leaders as far as potential candidates for the GM, or Danny Briere, two former Canadian players who have gained front office experience elsewhere in Tampa and Philadelphia. And I think Darche is a serious candidate. I'm not so sure Briere is, or Luongo, to be honest with you. Could Roberto Luongo's infectious personality be the perfect fit as the face of the franchise in the market? They're talking about Martin Lapointe, and seeing what Lapointe did to mentor an 18-year-old Patrice Bergeron, could that make Lapointe a very integral internal candidate? So getting a job somewhere in the organization. To know Gorton is to know that GM hired. Wait a second. Did I read that right? To know Gorton is to know that GM hired would not merely be a figurehead, but a trusted counterpart. Most importantly, any one of those four candidates would satisfy the French-speaking requirement. To know how Montreal works, that's a requirement that is a real thing. It is. The last time the Habs had an English-only speaking coach in 2012, hundreds of protesters gathered outside of Bell Center. So I don't really agree with it, but I do understand, and I've got something here in a minute I'm going to show you that kind of makes you understand a little bit more. Too often, that has meant the Canadiens have hired with a short deck, meaning they limited in the candidates that can be hired because of the language barrier thing. In Gorton, the Canadiens went out and got the best executive available who also happened to be an American and an Anglophone. It's been a long time since anyone has been able to type that sentence, and that's very true. But it's hidden because he's the president or executive vice president of hockey operations. He doesn't have to appear in front of the cameras often, but he can still have the power, right? So oddly, that the Canadiens officially hired Gorton in the newly created position of executive vice president of hockey operations was not mentioned until halfway through the team's press release. Mentioned before that, a process to recruit as soon as possible the team's next general manager is underway. While the next general manager will bring significant hockey expertise to the organization, an additional criterion of that person's role will be to communicate with fans in both French and English. And then I came across this on Twitter that I think makes a lot of sense. This is somebody explaining, I think he does a good job, of why it is necessary to have a GM and maybe even a coach that can explain in the language of a large chunk of the fan base here, what's going on. So here, this is Nick Kotsanika. To understand the importance of a bilingual GM in Montreal, listen to Molson's press conference as an Anglophone. It's frustrating not to understand most of what is being said. That's when the French reporters ask questions and he responds in French, right? Imagine being a Francophone fan of the Canadiens and not being able to understand the GM or coach in that way. So put yourself in that position. And a lot of people have asked me, because I live here in Quebec, that maybe, what did they say? So, right, you're frustrated, you don't understand. So it's the same thing. So we don't need a unilingual coach in either English or French. I'll agree with the fact that he should be able to speak in both languages. He doesn't have to be French and born in Quebec as long as he can speak in both languages. That's my criterion. So, but you can see how that, can kind of understand how that might be important. This is, what did I put here? About new GM search. Geoff Molson says he has not yet asked permission to any team to talk to any potential GM candidates. I know I had said this, that I had thought he had permission to talk to Matthew Darche. He didn't. So he has not talked to anybody. Also, Habs Molson says the search for a new GM will be exhaustive, potentially extending into next offseason for the right person. But also would like to fill the post. The sooner, the better. And he said, what he said by that is not that he wants it to rush, but he'd like to get it to be exhaustive, but to get it done as quickly as possible. The sooner, the better to have somebody in place. Right, but not to rush. I mean, he made a point of that. So this is a new structure for the Habs. Geoff Molson says Jeff Gorton will run hockey ops with the new GM, a two-man team. It's a new structure. It's going to be somehow a two-man team. This is why. It's a lot for one person. If I could go back a couple years and know what I know today, I would have complemented Bergevin with another person. Again, it's a lot. I think it's the same thing. I said the same thing, and I picked it up twice. Oh, well. He also goes on, these are some other points from his press conference. We need to be better at drafting, better at developing, and better at supporting our players to arrive at their potential. So at the drafting, obviously, Timmins got fired, and they're going to be bringing in a new director of scouting. And the other part there, the better at developing. So I was thinking that, Jean-Francois Houle, who's the coach of the Laval Rocket, who I think's made some questionable moves when we've sent players down there. You got to think that this guy's job he's a bit on the hot seat. They're probably going to revamp how they're doing their development and bring in new people. Obviously, the GM and Gorton will bring in the people they want to bring in and not people that were brought in already. So I've got to think their jobs are on the hot seat. Molson said also, they asked about a rebuild. He said, if the GM and Gorton recommend a rebuild, I'm not afraid of that word, and I think it's something our fans are not afraid of. That I'm not sure. I think some fans are. I think, though, we're at probably the most ready we've been for a rebuild ever right now. So, and, with a new group coming in managing, to sell the rebuild would be a lot easier than when you have a guy here for 4 or 5 years, and then he tries to talk you into a rebuild. It's a lot easier to sell when it's a new group here. About Dom, Coach Dom, full quote on Dominic Ducharme's job security from Geoff Molson. I don't make the coaching decisions. I haven't even discussed that with them. As far as I'm concerned, he's the coach and he's staying here. And you know what? That's a very good, I think, comment and a good decision. Don't fire the coach yet. There's no chance this team makes the playoffs. No chance. Doesn't matter. You bring a new coach, you bring in a whole new team. It doesn't matter. You're not making the playoffs. Leave him here. Get that good draft pick. I think that's the right decision. At the point where they find the right coach that they want, make the change if it's before the end of the season. That's fine. But don't just fire him. Or my buddy Pat had a good comment. Bring up the assistant coach. Yeah, you know who, the defensive coach. The name is just gone. Not Burrows, the other guy. Yeah, so you bring in the defensive coach. He was the coach when last playoffs when Dom had COVID and had to sit out. Bring him in. I think that you can sell that to the fans, and that gives you an interim coach, and maybe doesn't hurt the players as much and the young prospects who Dom's not playing properly. I don't think anyway. But apparently his job security isn't in jeopardy at this point. He also said no other changes coming for the moment in the Canadiens front office. So there will be no other changes coming at the moment. So, I mean, that's good. I don't know what else there is to change. I think I heard they had about scouts and stuff that they were safe for now. I imagine that's just for now. And when they bring other people in, they'll make more decisions on that. Here's something interesting. Geoff Molson says the Canadiens are making a critical change by building a medical team dedicated to the mental health of players. So we know with Carey Price, with Jonathan Drouin, we know all about the mental health issues. There's other players that would probably like to, access a little bit of that closer to the team. I think that's a really good decision based on because of everything that they have to go through with all the COVID and everything. Players must be suffering a little bit. I think it's a really good idea, and then carry that forward. Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's a great idea. He mentioned diversity and support. Geoff Molson says one of the priorities for a new hockey management team is to add diversity and support to the group. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I don't think that means on the ice. I believe he said he wasn't talking about the players, that you have to have diverse. I don't think. I think it's in the management team, in the people that work for the team. I think he wants more diverse group of people, and the support part obviously goes with the mental health team that he wants to build. I mean, that's the kind of support they're talking about, I imagine, amongst other things, I would think. So if everybody's wondering when Geoff Gordon will get here, he'll be here either Tuesday or Wednesday. That's according to Molson. There's a short-term apartment that's ready for him, but Gordon will be moving his family to Montreal to start the next school year. I think this is good. We're getting a guy who is being committed to Montreal, moving here, bringing his family here. I think this is a good thing, that kind of commitment. Geoff Gordon and the new GM will have the ability to make any decisions, including with the newly extended coaching staff. So that's basically what he said before. It's not his choice. They'll make the decision on the coach. Right now, as far as he's concerned, the coach is here. But they will have the opportunity. So I think I'm going to guess this. Until there's a GM in place, I think Coach Dom's job is safe. Once there's a new GM named, I think they will start that search for the new coach, and then that. But I think till then, I don't think Gordon's just going to make that decision on his own. From what you can read about him, he's very collaborative, they said. So I think that's how it'll work. And he said, I think I mentioned this before, the sooner the better for when a new GM will be hired, per Geoff Molson. He also said it will be an exhaustive search. There's a lot of work involved to do that. So I don't expect, I kind of expect before the trade deadline. Gives them a few months. I think they'll either announce somebody then if they found the right person, or they won't, and that's how it'll be. until they find the right person. So, and there you go. That's everything I was able to find out. I'm giving you my opinions on it as much as I can. And yeah, I'd like to know what you guys think about it in the comment section. And don't forget to check out on the pregame show. We're going to be talking about it a little bit more. That's tonight, depending when you're watching this, though. The Vancouver game and any other pregame, which is about an hour to 2 hours before every Habs game, depending on the time to start. Today, it's a later start than normal. So I hope you guys will check that out, and we'll see you there. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope everybody's happy. There's a new direction for Montreal. It seems really positive after having so much negativity over the last few months. That let's see where it goes. Montreal is on the road to the 25th Stanley Cup, I think, with this hiring. I don't know exactly when, but I think we're on the road to that. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Stay safe out there. Peace out, y'all. See you next one. Bye, everybody.